I have looked forward to this day for so long. Can I just tell you, ever since you came into Unity, because you came after me, right?
Yeah.
I can't, like, shortly after.
Yeah.
And I mean, last year was such a blur for me, but like you came in and it was this ray of sunshine, breath of fresh air. I'm not just saying that. You feel like a safe place. Like if a person was like a safe energy to come and just like feel loved and feel just the energy of good and light and love and beauty. That is you fully, 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 fully. So when we were talking about doing this recording, I was like, oh my gosh, because I feel like I have so much to learn. And so selfishly, I'm going to be learning through this conversation. I'm very excited about that. And I just want to bring your energy and just sprinkle that shit on everything because we all need it.
So much.
I put that shit on everything. So Tara Marino, welcome to All In with Allie. I am so happy to have you here. How are you?
Oh my gosh, you are extraordinary. You are extraordinary. There's so much that I want to say. So I'll answer the question, how am I? I am good. I am really good. I'm in such a special, sacred, like what I've been calling a beauty bubble in my life right now. And I feel really, really good. I feel like I'm listening to myself in a way that perhaps I never have. I feel like I've always been tuned in, but I feel like there's a new level of permission I feel to just like honor, like I'm in a really gorgeous honoring place of who I am and what I want. And so I'm good. I'm really good.
You seem good, for sure.
I feel really grounded. You know, oh my gosh, I say that. And then I just got a message from one of my last editors and she's like, okay, we're ready. We're going to go to agent. I'm like, okay, now I'm not grounded, but we'll get there. It'll happen.
Wait, so does that mean the book is finished?
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yes. No, it's like, we'll have another talk.
Now, is this your life story or are you teaching something or is this like a memoir?
So, I mean, when I thought about, okay, I'm going to write a book, I definitely thought my logical mind said it makes sense to write a personal growth book, right? That's what you teach. Let's talk about the Femme types. Let's talk about everything we teach inside Elegant Femme. And this woman I really admire said to me, write the book that's meant to be written.
Ooh.
Sounds like really easy advice. I sat down and the book that came through me was nothing like I thought I would write. It's a fiction book about a little girl that grows into this beautiful, mature woman on this spiritual journey of healing the masculine and the feminine. And it is underneath, it's completely my story, but it's magical. Like there's magic in the book. What came through was writing the book that a woman wants to read on the beach where she's naturally transformed, but she's not processing the shit out of herself. So that's the book. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know not the direction I think either of us were like, wait.
No, this is the exact direction I wanted to go. Because this is wild. I don't know how I somehow missed that in Unity and like that's what your book was. Because I really was not, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting how just in the past month, I've reread 2 books that I've read before and I've read them back to back and they have brought so much peace, so much magic. They have brought so much remembering to me and they are fiction books. It's The Alchemist.
So it's funny you say this because The Alchemist is one of the comparatives in my book about my book. Like in a book proposal, you have to do comparatives, right? So The Alchemist is one of the comparatives. So it's like Alchemist, Celestine Prophecy, like the monk in the Ferrari, like this kind of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like the Narnia, like this was my favorite series when I was a little girl. Like it's that energy, bringing the feminine and masculine into union in the world.
Okay, no. I love that so much. And by the way, I'll find the book and I'll link in the show notes because it is incredible. But I love to learn that way. I love to learn through a story because a book, when it's just like self-help or whatever, like you don't want to read that on a beach, you're falling asleep. But when somebody, and by the way, I was actually thinking about this as I was reading these books, I was like, it really takes a level of genius and creativity to be able to do this and teach something that you truly believe in and make it parallel to truth and reality while also making it an interesting fictional tale. That's not easy to do.
I will tell you, it is the most fun, creative, also heart-wrenching, challenging things I've ever done in my entire life, for sure. Like, I feel like this is the biggest birthing, other than my children, that I have ever experienced, ever.
How long did it take you to write it?
9 years.
Whoa.
9 years. From start to finish, right? This playing with the story, the allowing the story to come to life, the reliving some of the most intense experiences I've ever had, to the point where the level of healing and processing and recalibration of my cells that I needed to set it aside and like breathe in and embody that aspect of who I am and what I've experienced and grown through, to the point of the last like 3 years has been very, very intentional around the editing, around like, okay, we're going to publish this, we're going to do this. So let's go through the edits again and again and again and again and again. So the last 3 years has been really that part of it, but it's next level. Like really, it really, really is. It's next level. It was poured through me. It's not something that I overly thought about. I didn't sit down and plan the book. Like my husband's like, okay, if I was going to write a book, I would list out, these are the characters. This is what's going to happen in the story. This was not the way this book unfolded. This book, I had no idea what I was going to write. I sat down and it came through. The characters named themselves as I was moving through the story. I was surprised when I sat down and wrote. I didn't have it premeditated. No?
Wow. Okay. That's fascinating. But that's, from what I'm understanding, the more that I learn about you, that's your way, right? Like most people, and I would agree with Dave, like you sit down, you say, okay, what's the story arc and who's the hero and who's the antagonist and who's the da-da-da-da, what are their names, right? And let's do an outline and then we'll blah, blah, blah. And you're like, no, I'm just going to fully trust. And you made it the feminine way. And that's what you're all about. And here we are. Okay. So you're shopping. So you're shopping it around. And so you're hoping that it's going to be picked up by a publisher.
So we haven't even started yet. Like the next step will be going to agents. And then from there, the publishing. And yes, my intention would be that the publishing route, that's what my heart and soul feels is the most congruent, at least to explore that fully. And that was actually a big deal for me because I also felt like the story is so sacred. I could tell a piece of me wanted to hold everything. I wanted to control the whole process as well. I was like, I'll just self-publish because then I can manage all of these things. But I can tell in my heart that's not the fullness of the expression, at least right now. If I don't get, if the deal isn't congruent with what I feel the book requires, we'll publish it. No, like that's not even a question. Mm-hmm. But I can tell that going that route first, that I would be in protection mode,
100%. Okay. Well, okay, guys, we have that to look forward to. So I know you're going to keep everybody posted, but let's go back a little bit because your book has been 9 years in the making. Your brand has also been many years in the making. And I would love to hear, so for those who are listening, Tara is the founder and CEO of a brand called Elegant Femme. And it's a global lifestyle brand for women who desire more, right? More beauty, luxury, pleasure, all in accordance with their soul's deepest calling. This is per your Instagram. Yeah. But how did you get here? I want to know, take us back to Tara, however long ago. Yeah. Before you knew what you know now. I want to hear what it took to get you to this place that you are now, where you're writing books and you're creating perfumes, which we'll talk about, and you're hosting these lavish retreats and going to Paris and all the things. Bring us back.
Yeah. So I usually, when I look back, I usually do start with the precipice of the loss of my firstborn son, because that was such a catalyst for me in a direction and a choice of how I was going to move forward in my life. And all of us have a defining moment, many defining moments, right? Where we have that choice. And it was really the opening of Elegant Femme, where I had this idea of just who I was going to be in the world. I had always questioned from the time I was a little girl, like, what was my purpose? I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, like little, being like, okay, God, just tell me why I'm here and what to do, and I'll just do it. Like, I just remember myself that way. And I remember this feeling inside of me, like waiting for God to tell me what it was. And as I grew and as I matured and as I evolved, I found that conversation shift into, okay, I get to choose this. It's not just a sitting back passive process that God's going to come to me and tell me. There's a co-creation in me being vulnerable enough to say, this is actually what I want. I'm claiming that as my purpose. When I got pregnant with Mason, it felt like that question was answered. I didn't have to choose anymore. It's like, I'm going to be a mom. Like, purpose, check, done. I'm good. This is it. Like, I have my identity. I'm good. I don't even care. Anything else, I'm good. So when we lost Mason, the identity shift of, oh my God, not only did I lose a child physically, but my purpose felt like it was ripped from me. My identity, like I felt like I had like nothing to hold on to in my life. And again, I share that because I feel like a lot of us can relate to that. Even if, we haven't experienced the loss of a child, like that ground shaking moment in our lives where we're like, what the fuck? Like, no, I'm not interested. No, just no. So that energy really for like a year of victim of, any way I could numb myself, bottles of wine, Xanax, like whatever I could to try to escape that feeling and that, that anything I could do to escape it. And one day I was sitting in Arizona on like the marble floor in front of the fireplace, the travertine tile, and we had lawyer paperwork everywhere because there was some medical things that we could have filed. And I remember sitting there and I was a complete victim. Like I was screaming, why? Why me? Why me? Why me? What did I do? What did I do? And I feel like when we ask the why me question from that space of a void, that we can always find an answer to the why me. So I found a million reasons why I could be punished, like a million. I was going through everything that I've ever done in my life. And that, of course, you had an abortion when you were 17. Of course, your son would pass away. You deserve this. You're being punished. Like all the reasons why. And I heard this really quiet voice say, stop asking why and start asking how. How do you want this experience to affect the rest of your life? And it was that little opening for me that shifted everything. Like just this little tiny piece of like, okay, how? I reclaimed my power in that moment. Okay, how do I want? And the closest thing I could grasp for was like, okay, how can I be the type of mom that Mason would be proud of? That was like okay, who is she? Who is she? And that was a development really of all the femme types. It was these little aspects of me every single day that I was connecting with. Like, okay, who do I want to be today? This was the indie. What do I want to enjoy today? This was the Frenchie. And what is the one thing that I want to do? The one thing, like, can I just start with that one thing? And that was really the development of everything. It's like the most simple yet profound truth and that's still to this day with everything that we've created over the past 15 plus years, it's still that basic and that simple. Who do I want to be? What do I want to enjoy? And what is the one thing that I require to do? That simple.
Well, first of all, I'm so sorry about the loss of Mason and that you experienced that. I mean, that is my biggest fear. My mom lost my sister, and I cannot fathom that level of pain.
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to you, and I'm so sorry you had to experience that. And also the way that you rose from the ashes, and that question of, and even that why of like doing this for Mason, what would make him proud? How can I tell this in a way that like if he was here, which he
Yeah.
what would he be happy to see, is such a powerful shift in perspective that I would assume the average person would probably struggle really, really hard to be able to do on their own after experiencing anything really difficult, especially at that level of tragedy. When you, after, what was the timeline like? Like after you lost Mason and you had this moment, which I think you said was months later when you
A
had this
year.
like,
It was about a
okay,
year.
okay.
Yeah.
And then that's when you had this awareness of like, okay, this, I have a choice here. I have some power. And was that the inception of your whole brand? Like prior to this moment, there was no Elegant Femme. There was no, wow.
This was the moment. Like so the women that know the story inside Elegant Femme, whenever I post that it's Mason's birthday, because he was also born the day before my birthday. He's February 4th, I'm February 5th. So this was my 26, like the beginning of my 26th year was this experience. And whenever I post a picture of Mason, the women inside of Elegant Femme are like, happy birthday, Mason. Thank you for birthing Elegant Femme.
Mm.
Because it was the biggest gift of my life. We together created Elegant Femme. It was this healing process. And it wasn't, like this, like that first moment that I'm sharing with you was this birthing of my own femme types where I'm like, oh my gosh, something's here. Let me explore this. Let me live into this. I didn't have them named yet, right? It wasn't so
Right.
clear. Oh, indifferent. It wasn't a marketing idea. It was sketching, actually. First pieces of lingerie is how it all started, where I'm like, oh, this is like my indie lingerie. This is my Frenchy lingerie. This is my New Yorker lingerie. Because one of the big things for me is that I hated my body. I was so angry. I had a pregnant body. I had been breastfeeding. I had a freezer full of breast milk. I had a C-section scar. I couldn't even look at my body. I didn't even want to take a shower. It was so painful just to look down. So I avoided. I tried to numb out and disassociate completely from my body. So the little things in the Frenchie, take a shower today. Oh my God, I'm going to put on makeup. I'm going to smile, like these tiny little movements that I was making that were literally bringing me back to life. So I would say, I don't know the exact time frame, but shortly after that awareness, I started coaching women who had also lost children, because people started to comment to me like, okay, you are not the same.
How are you doing this?
Yeah, exactly. How are you doing this? Like this, not only are you not the same since Mason's loss, but you're not the same woman even from before. Like something drastically has changed. So I just was, oh, well, indie Frenchie New Yorker, like I do this thing. I was just like that, very that. And then other women who hadn't lost children started to ask, what are you doing? Friends of friends of friends. And people started to refer other women to me. And it was that organic that the first thing I started coaching was the indie. Like we all have to start with the indie. We all try to jump into the New Yorker. How do I do the thing? How do I make the money? How do I do the thing? How do I get the thing? What is the result? And this is so ass backwards, because all that does is sends us into frustration and overwhelm and burnout and the deprivation and the cycle of our value being completely dependent on what we do versus who we are. So I just started walking women through that process. And in that time frame, I wanted to get pregnant right away. This is like, there's no real, and you can never, ever, ever replace a life. So I don't mean to even borderline on that energy at all. And yet my arms were aching for a baby. I had a freaking nursery in my home. I had a crib. I needed that. I needed it. So we got pregnant, had a miscarriage. And then Dominic was born in 2003. So like a year and a half later, then Dominic was born. And then Nico was born right after Dominic. They're like 2 years apart. And that's when things really, once I had my boys and they were here and they were healthy and I could like take that breath, you know, that's when I really said, okay, Dave, like I'm going to go all in with this. Nico was 2 at the time and Dominic was 4 when I went all in with Elegant Femme.
It gives me chills to hear that. And it's like, I mean, just your perspective on Mason and the way you're able to look at that is remarkable, truly. And I know it probably so healing to some people. Do you think, I want to ask this in a delicate way, because you had made a comment that before you lost Mason, that was your purpose. I'm not saying that like he had to go, but do you think that like something needed to shake you to your core to wake you up to a bigger picture?
I do. And I do think he had to go, Allie.
Really?
I feel like this was his purpose. I feel like this was our soul curriculum together. I feel like this was the life that we were meant to live inside of that physical context, but the life that he brought to me and to the world, like 100,000,000% he was meant to go. It's so divine. And again, that doesn't mean it's not painful. It doesn't mean it's not that, but my God, I don't think there's any way Elegant Femme would have existed. I just can't see it. I don't know. There's no way for me to tell, but I mean, he changed not only the trajectory of my own life, but thousands and thousands and thousands of women.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can't make that stuff up, you know?
No, you can't. And I think it's so incredible too how these archetypes, you know, these alter egos essentially you created to save yourself. You know, they were like the medicine. Okay, this is what I don't have and I'm putting words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like me, myself, I can't get in the shower right now, but the Frenchie can. So I'm going to put the Frenchie on. Okay.
Exactly right. That's exactly right, Allie. And this is the beauty and the power of them, because all of us have like a set point and a limitation with how we see ourselves in the world based on our experiences, based on our beliefs, based on all of that. We have this, okay, this is what's possible for me, even if we're like super stretchy with it. But when you tap into the femme types, it's completely unlimited. The embodiment of yourself in that way, it blows the lid off. And this is why living into them, like the experiences I've had, what I've created, the way I've created it, none of it makes any sense. None of it. None of it. Like I have women come to me and say, can you help me like a business plan? Let's come up with like some marketing thing, like the femme types. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. No. Like you said it.
You wish.
I healed myself through like I healed myself through it. It wasn't, that's how organic and real it is. And I think for me, that's an additional gift of from that awareness. That's how I intend to birth everything inside of Elegant Femme, that it was for me. Every program, every clothing item, a perfume, any experience I create, going to Provence, going to Italy, going to Paris. Do I want to go? Is it turning me on? Does it excite me? What's there for me? That's where it has to start. It has to.
Yeah. Okay. So we're, of course, going to dive into the femme types, but I'm so curious, where did you even get this idea? Where did this come from? You just woke up one day, you're like, Indy, which by the way is my sister's name, which is super cool. But like, where did this come from? Did you just hear? Tell me everything.
So again, I started sketching lingerie.
Yeah.
For myself. Like I started to, since the embodiment of the Frenchie was so important to me from the body perspective, the lingerie piece was a really easy bridge. Like, okay, I feel really beautiful when I'm wearing this type of lingerie. And so I started to like name it that way. I love France. I'm obsessed with France. You know, we've lived there. I speak French. My major was in French. Like, so Frenchie was like easy. That was like easy. The indie part, that was the one that was a little bit interesting because for me, the essence of the connection of when we are most who we are, the essence of remembering, the essence of knowing that we are following our truth, our inner knowing, our connection with our intuition, especially when outside circumstances are less than ideal. Like that we don't need, oh, the money showed up today, so therefore I love myself. And so for me, the indie I don't know. Literally, I don't know. If I was thinking of India, I don't know. It was just, this feels right. I had a mentor in the very beginning tell me, you should not call it indie. You should rename that. And I was like, what do you mean rename it? I didn't like, again, it's not coming from here. It should be the Bali. I was like, yeah, no. It's actually the indie, and I don't have any explanation other than that's what came through. Wow. The New Yorker also felt very, very obvious because as I started to, again, sketch lingerie, as I started to buy these pieces that felt good to me, the New Yorker was the doing. It was this, can I get up off the couch and go for a walk? Can I journal? Can I actually take this further? Can I act and do something today? Again, the smallest things sometimes, right? Just going to the park or, something. Can I do something? And so the New Yorker energy for me felt super sassy, very New Yorker, very doing. And that's how they unfolded. That's how they were named that way.
Okay, so is there three? The indie, the Frenchie, the New Yorker? Okay, cool. Yeah. So is there any more that you would want to add? So it sounds like, okay, New Yorker is masculine, the more masculine approach, or you explain it because I'm not going to get my hot take. Go ahead.
So the indie is the being. So again, it's the connection with our inner knowing, our intuition. It's also the femme type that supports us with increasing our capacity to receive. This is huge for women. Huge, huge, huge. Every single femme type also has 9 layers, which this took years and years and years and years to develop again when they came through. So there's really beautiful complexity to them, but the simplicity is the being is the indie, the Frenchie is the enjoying. The Frenchie has everything to do with pleasure, body image, relationships, internal and external beauty. Okay. The New Yorker is the doing, but again, this is the femme type that is the most misunderstood because of this default that we have in society of like, okay, just what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? The New Yorker, the real New Yorker, it's not about doing as many things as possible. It's not about having a mile-long to-do list. It's about aligned action. Like, what is the most aligned thing for us to do? And sometimes rest is the aligned action.
Absolutely.
So that's the real embodiment of the New Yorker. It's strategic, but not in the way that the mind recommends. It's strategic in the way of what is my heart really seeking to experience.
Okay. So you talk about receiving, and I would love to talk about this because I would agree with you that this is something that I struggle with, that I'm working on. This is something that all of my clients struggle with. This is difficult with women.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your take on why you think that's so. And what would be like, if there was a way, and this might be a tall ask, but if there was like one piece of advice that you would give for somebody to start tapping into a better relationship with receiving, what would that look like?
Yeah. So starting with why I think it's so difficult. I think this is kind of the battle that we see if we were to look at like indie versus New Yorker energy. So many of us as little girls have been praised for what we do and for how we perform. So we get addicted to this proving energy of, oh, I've worked so hard. I've done so much. Like how long you've worked and how hard you've worked and how much you've given and how much you've done becomes like this huge level of accolades. Like, see, like this is what we've been taught to value. Receiving, we're like, wait, someone's giving me something or I'm just receiving. How is that okay? Let me make sure I justify this. If I'm going to receive something, I can prove to you that it's okay that I've received it because look at how much I've done.
Yes.
This, I feel like, is the conflict and the difficulty in this. And because I do feel like women are deeply, deeply starving, like deeply, to receive, to lean back, to allow high levels of support, of beauty, of permission in their lives, because that ache is so deep and because there's a misunderstanding about how to get that, women are working harder and harder and harder and harder and doing more and more and more and more, thinking, unintentionally or subconsciously, that one day they're going to hit that little mark that's like, okay, you've done enough. Now it's receiving time. It doesn't work this way. It doesn't work this way at all. We are the only ones that can say, I have done enough. My value and my self-worth is not dependent on how much I do. In fact, isn't it kind of cool and fun to be like, I don't need to do anything in order to receive what I desire? Like, what would that even just feel like to play with that energy, to unhook that I have to do this thing in order to receive what I want? What if it's like, how can I allow myself to be the embodiment, the energy, the congruency with the thing that I desire to receive? Like, what does that feel like in my body? And it's very vulnerable for us to receive. That's the other thing. We're like, oh my gosh, if I receive it, that means somebody can take it away. This is the misunderstanding, right? So it becomes very vulnerable. We go right back into that. No, let me do the thing. Let me take full ownership and control the thing. It just doesn't work. We all know it doesn't work. And yet we keep on spinning our wheels around in the doing. So that's the big difficulty, I think.
Okay.
So if we're to look at, how can we really allow ourselves to begin to open up our sense of receiving? And just that first reframing inside of, what if who I am has nothing to do with what I do or don't do? But like, really, not the mind that's like, yeah, I can wrap my head around it. No, but like, really, if we just sat with ourselves and said, if I didn't do another damn thing, how would I feel about who I am? Can I not only feel like that's enough, but actually celebrate that? Okay, let me just sit with that. Let me just be with that. Let me see, can I feel my own value? Like, what if we never made another penny? We attach so much of our value to how much money we make.
Yeah.
So these kinds of like conversations inside do begin to open up our sense of receiving. The other thing to play with, can we go like a little spicy?
Please.
Okay. So when we look at just physically for us as women, like, we are built to receive. There's no doubt about that. That's like, our physiology, like, we're here, receive, let me in. So really playing in the bedroom with a sense of receiving, like, can you receive pleasure? Can you allow it? Can you literally, physically, emotionally, and mentally open yourself up to receive pleasure without feeling like you need to do anything to prove that you're worthy of that? A lot of women start to feel themselves press up against it. Okay, well, that's enough. Like, 1 orgasm's enough. Or 2. Well, what about 10? Like, play with how it feels in your body, literally, to feel safe around receiving.
Yeah. Love that. I mean, what a dream, honestly. And the crazy part about that is our partners want that too.
Yes.
That's another thing that so many of us need to realize is like, that's also their dream in a lot of ways. So it's allowing ourselves to be okay with that and practicing. So that's what I'm hearing you say is take like any area of life, whether it be in the bedroom or with work, or like, I had this experience the other day, Tara, where I have this lovely friend, and he sometimes will take, like, he'll snatch like sweet pictures from my Instagram and print them and send them to me. Like, he captured this beautiful picture of my boys that I posted on my stories, and this really sweet picture of me and my dad, and he'll send it to me. And he's just an old dear friend. And he did this like twice in a row. And the second time I received, and he sends it in this beautiful letter with this sweet notion. And it's like, I mean, it's just the most beautiful, thoughtful gift. And the second time this happened, I was like, I haven't done anything for him.
Yeah.
You know, like I thanked him for the first thing, but like I had like this thing that I wanted to send him, but then he went and he sent this first, and I was like, and I didn't even want to tell him thank you for it because I felt ashamed that he beat me to the punch. And this was I caught it immediately. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
there's something here. And I mean, I already knew that, but it's so insidious.
Yeah, it's so true. It's that, and that is a beautiful thing that you're bringing forward, because we are afraid that if we receive, what do I have to give for that?
Right.
What do I have to do? How do I, give back? Is someone going to expect something from me if they give me something, whether it's something beautiful like that or a helping hand, right? If a friend's like, I'll pick up your kids from school. I don't know. I'm going to owe her.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Like, can I just receive this? And can we truly, truly understand what it feels like to gift, like that your friend that he already received from that?
Yes.
I sense, because it was something that was really meaningful for him to be able to do for you. And for us to be able to just like allow that, be gracious enough to be like, wow, I fully, fully receive this. There's nothing we need to do. There's no, someone doesn't have something over us now where we have to then go. We can if we feel called, but isn't just thank you enough? Right. Like that gracious piece inside of us. It's like, I receive. And this is something that as women, we can just even start to practice. I receive. I receive. I receive that. Thank you. I receive that. If we're caught in this martyr syndrome of like, for example, how many of us run around, we're like, oh, it's always me. I'm always doing everything. I'm doing everything. It's always on me. And then someone's like, well, can I help you? And you're like, no, I got it. Again, that addiction to us, like, well, I'm doing it all. So therefore, like, I'm special, I'm busy, I'm important. I get the gold star. I'm doing it all. Enough. Like enough.
I see this with clients, and I was this person, and I still can be this person where you want to be, quote, self-made. So you feel like you need to do it all yourself. And our mentor, Melanie, has that incredible story where she said out loud that she was going to build $1 million business with no team just to prove that it could happen. And then like halfway there, she's like, why did I say that? This is so stupid. But she stands by her word because that's the type of woman she is. But I see a lot of women, it's like this badge of honor of like, I can do all the, most of the things for the kids, and I can cook the meals, and I don't have to hire a cleaning crew because I can do it myself, and I can do this, and I can run the business and all of this, and I'm self-made. And it's like, okay, how do you feel about that? Because it's doing nothing for us. So like You're hurting yourself for what? For a badge of honor that means nothing, that's taking away not only from how you could feel, but probably what you could do and put out into the world because you're trying to wear all of the hats. Like there's no glory in that.
Agree. I totally agree. And I think, again, this comes back to what is it that we really value truly? Do we value that addiction to working, to performing, to proving, to doing? Or are we valuing our quality of life? Are we misaligned in some way? And do we have the courage to reprioritize what's truly important to us, whether or not society values it? I made the decision to retire from live coaching at the end of this year. I've taken sabbaticals. Like this is something that I really support women in doing. Like, leave the job if it's no longer in service. Go on the sabbatical, go on vacation, go live in another country, like retire. Like, what is it really truly that supports your fullest expression in the world? No one can do that for us. No one. And there is no like, I've, reached that pinnacle peak. Now someone else is going to give me permission to step off the treadmill. We're the only ones that can do it.
I have an interesting question for you, and I'm hoping that I can say it and articulate in the way that it's in my mind. But I know that whenever you heal your relationship with receiving. That's essentially you healing your self-worth, you're increasing your relationship and your understanding of how worthy you are. You know, we're all born worthy. It's us and life that chips away at that with a different. So by being able to receive, you're essentially understanding your worth, which from my understanding, so I'm trying to look at this from almost like a scientific energy stance.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a higher level of self-worth, you now are more attractive to the things that you want in a sense. So there's that angle.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where my mind fucks with me. I have so much tied up in action. That's how I was conditioned, right? Like my dad, like the thing is like, I worked this many hours, I made this much, right? And like, that's all I've ever seen. So I'm undoing that. So like, for example, we're going on vacation next week. And I mean, I would love to just like, screw it. I'm not posting. I'm not doing this. I'm just going to like fully lay back, relax. I don't need to do a thing. But my mind is going to be doing the thing where it's like, it's not enough. So we also have free will, and our beliefs are going to dictate what the world serves us. So that's where I get stuck with like, okay, I know I'm enough to not have to do the thing, but also my mind is like, but also if you don't do anything, then do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, so I guess what needs to happen is if I really believed in my self-worth, then I wouldn't think that there was action that needed to be taken. So that little voice wouldn't be so loud and messing with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I really hear what you're saying. And I feel like there's an additional integration for us. So
Okay.
It is certainly like, as we increase our capacity to receive, as we increase our awareness of our value and our worthiness, it's not like you said, we don't get our value or we don't get worthy. We already are it. It's the remembering of it, right? That's the unraveling. It's like, oh, that's right. That's right. That's who I am. That's right. That's right. That's who I am. And that's why that energetic magnetism that you're talking about, or all of a sudden you're attracting the things, because there's an energetic frequency of like truth. Oh, that's right. I'm remembering who I am. Mm-hmm. Now, the addiction to like the action, like when we start to slow down and the mind's like, oh, but you know, you should post or you should this, or what's going to happen if you really step back, or things going to unravel, or you're going to like whatever the story might be. For me, the connection point that helps bridge that is to start to really value the rest, to start to really value the time away, to really like intrinsically understand how necessary it is. So I have a client, this is like perfect timing. I have a client who just yesterday quit her job, multiple six-figure, like the whole thing. And we were having a conversation today where she's taken the month of August off. Like we've planned this. She's taking the month of August off to rest, and same kind of voice. Like I can sit there for a minute, but then all of a sudden it's like, you should get up. You should be doing something like, and it's that, can we really have a sensual relationship with rest? Can we really understand that when we are resting, that when we are reflecting, that when we are leaning back and allowing this really spacious connection between us and source, us and God, us and ourselves, whatever it might be, can we understand how valuable this is? Because this is where we co-create from. We don't really co-create from the doing, from the taking of the action. That's the end. That's the last part of the equation, right? Again, looking through that lens, which I can't help but look through, is so in me, the indie, the Frenchie, the New Yorker. If we're just in the doing energy and we haven't connected with the indie and the Frenchie, it's like haphazard. You could do 100 things and not have the same result or effect that if you did one, or sometimes if you did nothing. Because when you're sitting there on vacation and you're with your boys and you're with your husband and your nervous system starts to relax and your body starts to open and you start to see life through a different lens, That's when the program idea comes up.
Mm.
That's when oh my gosh, I need to raise my prices by 50%. Oh my gosh, like these kind of things, like, oh wow, I just lose 5 pounds or this, like what the alignment and integration starts to happen because we've allowed the space for it. If we don't value this, if we don't allow the space, if we don't shift our relationship with rest and with space, I believe we are limiting our co-creative power.
Mm. That's beautiful. What is your relationship to meditation? I know you like to journal. How are
Yeah.
you with meditation?
I love meditation.
Okay.
So I don't do it every single day. I do it often, and I also love breath work. So like starting the day with in indie energy, like starting with the connection, the breath, the meditation, the journaling, like just the moment, the moments of remembering, like whatever they are for us. Like let me just take some time to remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are you with that when your boys were young?
So it's really funny. It's really different. So certainly I have a 17-year-old and an almost 20-year-old now. So it's very different. But I can remember, literally, I can remember meditating on the mat. I have a picture of Nico. He's like 4 and he's in the corner in a timeout and he's like this in a timeout with his
Oh,
legs crossed. So they have watched me do that since I was, since they were really, really young. But maybe I would get like 3 minutes, not 20. But also, like, I can remember one moment where I was on my meditation mat and I'm like, in my vibe, I'm in my groove, and they were young and they came into the room and literally I was like, like and I'm like, oh, this is funny. Like,
yeah.
what is the point of like,
Yeah, that's me. Yes.
like, can we also take meditation off the mat? Like there's so many more ways to meditate. Meditate is presence,
That's
right?
beautiful.
So when they come in and when they're doing cartwheels in your face and the whole thing, it's like that can be meditation as well. Like just grab their toes and breathe and receive a moment and have it be part of the meditation. It's not like, oh crap, now I didn't meditate. It all got messed up. It's like that actually is a form of meditation.
It's so true. And that's where I get caught up. It's like you try and make it like I need to do this perfect 15-minute guided meditation with no interruptions.
Exactly.
And I want to journal and I want to do, and it's like, okay, calm down. It doesn't have to be. I get as much peace. I get more peace nursing Rhett and just like looking at him and just like zeroing in on this fleeting, stunning gift of a moment.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, that is, everybody, man, woman, I don't care. Like, we all need to remember that. Like, and your big thing is beauty. And I can imagine you just have such an incredible lens through which you look at life, and I of course want to go into that too, but it's a really good reminder, especially for those of us with young kids who desire, there's that old part of you that's desiring that classic morning routine like I used to have, and it's not coming anytime soon. So, okay, what can we work with right now? And it's probably so much better.
I mean, what I would give Allie to nurse my boy, like I remember when they were little, not being able to like pee without them either on my lap or their fingers underneath the door. Like, that move where you're like holding it and you're like trying to get your pants down, you're peeing, like the whole thing. I can remember.
I did it this morning.
Exactly. And now it's like, if I get 5 minutes with them, I'm like, oh my God. 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 And that's the beauty of life. Like the contrast is what gifts us the exquisite remembering of those moments. Like if we didn't have the contrast, we wouldn't be able to feel it to the intensity that we do. So it's that to me is meditation, what you're saying, like nursing and watching him and being like, you are doing it then. It's just for us to give ourselves permission to allow that.
Yeah. And see it for what, and let that be enough, just like we are enough.
Exactly.
Yes. So talk to me before we move on. Talk to me about this sabbatical, because I've always wondered and I've always wanted to hear the story of this, because this is something, and I'll tell this story for those listening, but in the beginning or end of last year was really difficult for me. And I was going into 2023 and I just wanted a break. I just like, I needed to heal. I needed to just take time. And I remember bringing that into Unity. And you said to me, you said, years ago, or I can remember, I took X amount of months off and it was the best decision I ever made. And I was like, I need to talk to Tara about that. And then promptly forgot because of life. And I did not, because that voice and because of all the shoulds, and it didn't make any sense at all. And I know that the best decisions rarely make sense. I understand this conceptually, but in that moment, the fear was louder than my desire for a break. So for anybody that's listening today, that is where I was, or where you were, or just, whether it's a day, an hour, a month, 6 months, talk to us about this sabbatical and what your experience was and how you navigated that.
Yeah. So the one that you're referring to, so I've done a few times in my life where I've taken time off. So the sabbatical, it ended up being about 5 or 6 months. Wow. So what happened? And this is where I do feel like, when we have really big defining moments, I feel like life is like, hey, we all know that we know that we know that life is precious. We all know that we know that we know that we're not going to be here forever. We know these things, but we don't always live into that knowing. And I feel like when life shakes us, I feel like life is saying, remember? And there's like a window, like you were saying, you were like, you felt it so strongly and then it like passed. Cause I feel like there's a window where where everything makes sense. Like life gives us something where all of a sudden the priorities are like you just see it. You're like, oh my gosh, all this other stuff doesn't matter. And it starts to fade after some time because life just continues. So I had one of these windows. So we had, I've been through 5 IVF cycles. We really wanted to have another child. And the first IVF cycle, I got pregnant, and we were living in France, and we saw the baby's heartbeat, and like, it was just euphoric. Like, it was like, it was the perfect story. Like, when you look back in hindsight, you're like, oh, okay, this is the perfect story. This is why it happened. This is why, and it was a boy and the whole thing. I miscarried, and this rocked me because I didn't think that I could actually ever hurt that way again. My mind was like, you've already you've buried a child. There's no way this should be hurting this bad. Like, what's wrong? You should be skipping to the front of the grief line. Like, this.
Yeah.
This. I was shocked, Allie, by how much I was affected. I was shocked. Plus then I had the added judgment of like, you're so evolved now. Like, you've created this whole business. You speak about this. You've already healed from Mason. Like, get on with yourself. Like, this is ridiculous. I had so many judgments. So about that time, with a lot of deep listening, we had had our fashion show. We had had our first fashion show by that point, somewhere around that. We were getting ready to have our second. And I started having some deep conversations with my soul. And I was like, oh my God, I'm supposed to leave Paris. And this shocked the crap out of me because this was the only thing I ever wanted in my life besides kids. Just get me to Paris. So to voluntarily leave was unheard of. But again, that soul calling, like, what am I really a yes for? My ego or my soul? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we started to look at that. That's when we decided we were going to do a sabbatical. Like, let's do a whole transition from Paris to actually land here where we are now in the Outer Banks. And it was all supposed to be the Outer Banks, maybe like 6 months. We've been here for 7 years next month. But that's how life works. So that was the beginning of the sabbatical. It was like this life shifting moment that shook me to my core, where I knew I needed to stop and listen. I knew if I ran through that finish line without receiving the full healing, that it would be in a disservice to my soul. I just knew it. It didn't make sense. Like, I didn't want it. None of it made sense. Mm-hmm. But I love adventure. I love travel. I love spending time with my boys. We were already homeschooling them. I take my boys out of school in France for 2 years. We traveled to Italy. They had, history lessons on the streets of Pompeii, steps of Pompeii. Like, this is the stuff I love to do. So we took a sabbatical. We, had the team completely rearranged. I let a lot of team members go. I had a couple core members that were running launches on the back end without me doing anything, without me being there. We went sailing for Greece for 6 or 8 weeks. We lived in Thailand for 3 months. Like, we just went. We just did it. Like, for me, and again, I don't mean to make it sound so simple, but when I get to the core of it for myself, I live for experiences. I do not live to work. I do not. And my business always grows monumentally when I'm following my heart and my truth. Me behind a desk working is way less valuable than me on a sabbatical in Thailand with my kids. That was one. Do you know that I worked? So I took 5 to 6 months off. It was one of our most profitable years ever. Not highest revenue, but I think the highest or second highest profitable year.
Wow. Okay. So you had a team doing some things on the back end, but so you weren't coaching. You were you were totally hands off, just traveling, living your best life with the boys. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause that's it. It was the money piece for me. It's like, okay, where is this going to come from? And that part, and I do feel now in hindsight, I missed that window. And the way that you worded that is so beautiful. Like, when you have these moments of knowing, and it doesn't make sense and it can feel scary, but it was a knowing, like, you need to take time off. It'll work itself out. And I didn't take the leap. But the cool thing that I'm noticing is I notice windows all the time. There are windows all the time. Like, I feel windows right now that I could leap through and take. And it's just like, that's the point of calling it a leap, right? Is just trusting that. And you worded this so beautifully, that you are so much more effective, and you help so many more people living your best life with your children, and get the inspiration and the experience and being the proof of what's possible and all that comes to you when you're allowing yourself to live that life and tap into that desire, versus sitting at a desk because that's what you think you should be doing. And because that's, again, the logical, or what we have been trained and conditioned to believe is the logical thing that we should be doing.
Exactly. And I know it's scary. Like, we feel so much safer all right, well, I can see logically how this makes sense. I can see logically where the money is going to come from. I can, it makes us feel safer. It's so freaking boring. I get so bored so quickly. Like, I can't even, it sucks the life force right out of me. I'm not effective. I am not effective when I see through that lens at all. I'm like, ugh. I don't even want to play. I don't want to play that game. That game's not fun for me.
Yeah.
This is why, Nico he's a senior this year. He's 17. So we have one more year. And, Dave and I are going to get on a boat, and we're sailing around the world, and Elegant Femme will move really to fully online, and there will be, structure and support and team to support that unfolding. But it's just time for a new chapter. And I think, like what you're saying, you're seeing windows, go experience what's on the other side of the window.
Yeah.
Why else are we doing what we're doing? I don't see any means to it if we're not giving ourselves full permission as entrepreneurs to be like, I'm going to go. We can work from anywhere. We moved to France when the boys were 4 and 7. So the kids can always go and come with you. Yeah. My kids are so well adjusted, the way they speak, the way they think, right? They speak multiple languages. They see through a lens that the majority of their friends can't even fathom. The majority of their friends' parents say to me, I don't like the conversations I have with your kids are like conversations I don't have with anybody. It's because they're living that. We've given that to them. I'm not a conventional person. And you aren't either.
No, I'm not. And I'm so thankful for that. And I'm so thankful for you for doing this for yourself, so that I can see this, and people that are listening can see this, and they can see what is on the other side of the window. And it's Tara Mother effing Marino with this insane brand and legacy that you built. And I feel like you're just getting started, right? You're launching this book. And I mean, this is just like, that was chapter 1 or whatever. And now, I mean, you're opening it up to so many other things. I would love to ask you, what was it like deciding? Because you said the boys were 4 and 6 when you guys moved to France. Okay.
4 and 7.
4 and 7. Okay. And then you just loved France. You had been, right? Okay. And where were you guys moving before you moved? And what was that like, coming to this, like, holy shit, we're doing it. We're going to France for real.
So this is so Tara. When you hear this story, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me.
So
but
excited.
It was so much fun. So first we were living in Arizona, and we moved from Arizona to California when Elegant Femme started to get going. And we downsized our house. I sold my wedding ring. We cashed out our 401k, and we went all in the business. Like, that's who I am. And thank God for my husband. Like, he was like all in with me, left his corporate job. So we moved to California to get Elegant. Yeah, we're this little tiny 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. Our neighbor used to smoke pot, and we used to like try to cover the outlets because we were like, to our kids, they're like, what's that smell? Like, it was like this. Like, we were like, okay, we're doing this.
Question, hold on. You said Dave quit his job to work in Elegant Femme?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Proceed.
Yes. So we were living in this tiny, tiny 2-bedroom apartment, and our lease was up. And we knew, like, Elegant Femme had started to get going. Like, I was coaching private clients, like, things were happening. We're like, okay, we put everything in storage. We're like, we're gonna move to another house, like maybe in Santa Monica, like north of Montana, because we were south of Montana. And it was like, clearly there was a north of Montana, and we were not there. So we put everything in storage, and we were like, we're going on vacation in France. And it was literally never spoken, but it was like, we're going on vacation in France.
She just winked at the camera, by the way, if you're listening. Yeah, she's doing a wink, wink.
Everything was in storage. Like, we literally had no ties. We had our suitcases, and we were in the south of France, and we had friends that came and met us that lived in France with the boys. So the boys also, this is also very Tara Marino. I was sending my boys to French school when they were born. So they were going to French school in Arizona. So we made friends with some beautiful French people that became very close friends to the boys. So we were visiting them when we were in the south of France. They came to the beach with us. And I spoke out loud. I want to move here. This is my lifelong dream. And I think I probably was crying, because even to admit to myself out loud that this is what I wanted, the emotion completely overtook me. And they said, if you're serious, we will help you. Within a week, the house that I had written about in my vision, we were looking at it at the top of the hill. We moved to France. We signed a lease. We signed the boys up for French school. We still didn't have a visa. We had a bank account. Like, there was so much money on the line. We didn't have anything. We had suitcase. Dave had flip-flops. That was it. That was like all he brought on vacation. Suitcase and flip-flops. We moved to France. The only reason we came back to California was to like go to the embassy to pray that they would grant us the visa, that I had already signed like a lot of money on the lifestyle that we were committing to. That's how it happened.
So you were acting as if like the visa's done. You just, okay. And that's an important piece of the story though, because so many people be like, we got to go get the visa first. I mean, logically, that's what makes sense. You're like, let's hope it goes through because we're here. Acting as if 101.
I mean, we had signed the lease on the house, and this is a really interesting story as well. So it was this yellow house at the base of the French Alps, and it stood out like a sore thumb because you're in the base of the French Alps. There's like a view of Mont Blanc. Like, these are not the typical houses in the south, in this part of France. It was yellow. It had lavender. It looked like it was in Provence. So we are going to sign, and it's not easy to, as a foreigner, to get a rental. Like, there's a big amount of money that you need to put down. There's a bunch of hoops that you need to jump through, which I wasn't aware of. When you're naive, it can actually work really well for you.
Yes.
We got called into a meeting. Well, let me back up a little bit. I said, Dave, we have to go see the house. I had called the real estate agents, and they were like, we're not available. No, 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 no. And I was like, we're going anyway. So we went up to the house, and I was literally looking through the gate, looking over the gate, and some man comes out in, just jean shorts, looking like the gardener. I mean, for sure. I was like, this is the gardener. And he's like, I can let you in. And, he's speaking French and I'm not even though I majored in it, I wasn't as fluent. When you're there, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking us through the house and, I'm falling in love with the house and, I'm thanking him the whole thing. And he can see me, my tears. I'm looking like the whole thing is just a movie scene for me. So we put in an offer for the rental and we get called into a meeting. And they say, we have 2 offers. You're up against a famous footballer, a famous soccer player who plays for the Grenoble team. He wants the house as well. So they called us into a meeting, not him with, but us with the frickin' gardener was the owner, Allie, of the house.
Oh my gosh.
And he chose us, which made no logical sense because we didn't have like a salary from a famous footballer, a clear salary, the pay stubs versus an entrepreneur from a foreign country who
doesn't even have a visa yet.
Doesn't have a visa. We barely had a bank account, and he's become one of our closest friends. Monsieur Moreau, he took my husband sailing. He was meant to be in our lives.
Wow. What a freaking story. And if that doesn't show you that this was meant to be, it was divine. It just needed you to decide it and to move forward.
Exactly.
And
then, but then the aligned action, like I went to the house. It's those leaps of faith that you and I are talking about. Like, this is a yes, this is a yes, this is a yes, this is a yes, this is a yes. And keep going.
Okay. I'm so curious how Dave is when you are in dreamland and you're wanting to bet it all, move to France, go see the house, makes no sense, put an offer down, put the boys in French school, like all the things. How is Dave? Like, he just seems like the most dream team player, like the man that was custom created for you in this life. What is he like in this situation? Is he resisting or is he's just fully learned to trust you at this point?
So I would say, oh my God, there's a whole nother story too, how Dave and I met. And it turns out we were already pregnant with Mason. And we found out after the fact that his grandmother and my grandmother grew up next door to each other in Yonkers, New York. And his grandfather delivered my aunt and uncle and was my mother's pediatrician. Like, to talk about that this man was custom made for me is like, so Dave is much more pragmatic. He does like to think things through. He would love if there was an ironclad guarantee for everything. And yet my energy is so infectious and contagious. And he trusts me so much, like so much that he has learned over time, like, you're crazy. Tell me your vision and I will do everything in my power to make it happen.
Wow.
So when we were, this transition of being on vacation and then moving and the whole thing, I can remember sitting in the car and enrolling 2 private clients for $2,500 a piece consistently per month. And I was like, hey, we have $5,000 a month consistent. Let's go. We can do it. I just covered everything. But that's also who I am. When I want something, I don't need to wait for someone to tell me how to figure it out. If I want it enough, I will find the solution. And he knows that about me. So I don't sit back and say, someone make this happen for me. I'll step into it. I'll embody it. So I think that was okay, he could breathe there. It wasn't there was some safety, enough safety for him to be okay, at least that's covered.
He knows that you're gonna take the action that needs to be taken, and you're gonna bet on yourself, and he can bet on you too.
Yeah, and he does. He bets, and he's seen it now that he's seen it time and time again. I mean, the fashion line. He's like, "You're nuts. What do you mean we're gonna have a runway show in Paris?" I'm like, "We're gonna do it."
Yeah, let's talk about that. Talk to me about this. I mean, you have lived multiple lives in one life, which is so beautiful and exciting. Talk to me about the fashion line.
Okay. So we were living at the base of the French Alps, right?
Yes.
So the whole thing happened.
What a line, by the way. So we were living at the base of the French Alps. It's natural. Yeah, same. Totally.
Yeah. Walking the kids to school, every day, walking by cherry trees where the neighbors would literally clip cherries for Nico on his way home from school. This was the thing. And me being me, I'm like, oh, what else do I want? What else? How can it get even better? So I said, okay, I've always wanted to go to fashion school. I've always wanted. So I applied to fashion school in Paris. And I moved to Paris by myself. I left the kids and Dave at the base of the French Alps, and I moved to Paris and went to fashion school.
For how long?
For 6 weeks.
Okay.
And, you know, they came up and visited, but that was where I'd always really wanted to be anyway. But there was this, you know, as we're growing into our dreams, I feel like that's our increased capacity to receive. Like I wasn't fully ready to let myself have it. Yeah, baby steps, have all of it, you know?
But that's one hell of a baby step, moving from California to the base of the Alps. So bravo.
Yeah. But this one was like earth shattering for me. You know, the idea that I could live in Paris. So being there and going to fashion school, and it just lit me up. I made so many connections so quickly. None of it even made sense. I mean, as soon as I spoke out my desire and that I wanted to create a fashion line, I had people literally come out of the woodwork in Paris that had done this before, that took me underneath their wing, that believed in me, that saw what I had already created inside of Elegant Femme, who knew that there was a clientele. You know, I knew there was a clientele. Like when you're a new designer, that's who's going to buy your clothes, right? It's this, like, what is that? So I already had a built-in customer base. So I told Dave when I got back from fashion school, I'm do a fashion line and I want to move to Paris. And he was like, you're literally, now you are crazy, because do you know how much it costs to live in Paris? It's like literally easy twice the amount that it was where we were living. Plus we were already living in euros and making money in dollars. And this was back in 2008, 9, 10, where the euro was way, way higher than the dollar. It wasn't as close. Like now it's not bad. It was like half. It was half.
Oh, wow.
So none of this made any sense. And I mean, I met this incredible art director. He took me under his wing. He introduced me to a lot of people in the fashion industry. I started sketching what I wanted for the first capsule collection. I created 15 pieces. I put it in a beautiful hat box, an ode to my grandfather who had the first department store in San Diego. I launched it live at an Elegant Femme event and sold out. And I launched the hat box for $1,500 in my first fashion thing. It was like $180,000 payday.
Oh my gosh.
Which is unheard of for a new designer. So from that, then we said, okay, let's take it to the catwalk. So we did.
To the catwalk. Yeah, to the catwalk. Wow.
Yeah.
No big deal. But you got this inspired, and that's the common denominator in so many parts of your story is you get this, and that's what you teach on, which of course you do, which is tapping into your desire. Like, what do you actually want? And realizing that there's a reason why you want that. Like if you didn't want it, or if you want it, there's a reason why, because you are fully capable and meant to receive it, but you've got to do your part. So you get these inspired ideas and you move on them. When most people would say that's insane or that's too scary, that like myself, you're like, F around and find out, time to go to the catwalk. I'm going to nail it. So you did 2 fashion shows in Paris, right?
I did. And this was really beautiful too, because just as you're saying, and this is something important that I'd love for all of your listeners to remember about themselves. Like so many people told me I couldn't do it. I shouldn't do it. And even the way I wanted to do it. Like my art director who loved me, believed in me. I said, I want to speak, at the end of the catwalk. I want my clients to come up to the microphone. He was like, what? Like, no, nobody does that in Paris. Like, if you want to be seen as a real designer, you need to follow this set of rules. And I was like, no, I have a message. I have a message to the line, to the collection. So inside of all the clothes is sewn a little label that says, I am beauty. So at the tables, like we had this beautiful dinner afterwards, and at the tables, there were signs, like you would see it like maybe a high-end wedding, right? So I had the signs made, I am beauty. People told me, you are crazy. This is nuts. We've never seen anything like this. At the end of the show, Allie, the Parisian press stood up and held the signs. We had a standing ovation at the end of the first fashion show of the Parisian press standing up and holding these I am beauty signs. It's like, no matter what somebody tells us is right or wrong, the way it should be, we have to do it our way. It's our expression, like whether it's a program or a fashion line or like, what is the aspect of you that's wanting to be expressed? And can you go all the way with that expression? Because that's what rides on the desire energy. The desires want to be expressed through us. So any kind of like holding back or trying to conform, like that's not why we're entrepreneurs. We're entrepreneurs. We can do whatever the hell we want,
Correct.
the way we want to do it. But we forget that. And we put ourselves back in this box of, okay, the price should be this because that's what people say that this. No. It's the experience of it. And so we did. I had my Creme de la Femme mastermind go up to the microphone and say, I am beauty. I am beauty. I am beauty. So we had the whole runway of all these high-end Parisian models, but I also had a 55-year-old model walk the runway. She was the first one out. And this wasn't popular back then, but she had walked for Helmut Newton back in the day. Her name is Sylvia Gobel, and she opened up the fashion show. So then we had all these models, and then I had my clients afterwards because I wanted to show that beauty is beauty for everyone. Like there's no exclusivity to beauty. Like every single one of us has that. And that was the message of the show.
Have you always had this relationship with beauty? Where did this come from?
I feel like I've always been drawn to beauty, and I used to feel really bad about it. Like I'd go into a store, right? I'm the oldest of four. And my mom would say, like, pick out something. And I would end up picking out the most expensive thing every time without,
that's me.
without purposely knowing, but I was just drawn to quality and beauty. And sometimes I would get the reaction of like, oh, you always pick out the most expensive thing. So I used to feel bad about it. I used to judge myself for it. I used to hear things, and again, whether or not it was really said this way, how I interpreted it as a young girl was like, you're beautiful, therefore you don't understand, or you're not as good of a person, or that's all you care about. And so there was this piece inside of me that felt like I had to overcompensate and prove that I was good, that I was more than that I cared deeply. And so I would often buy into the illusion that self-sacrifice was the way that I could do that. I didn't want to just be seen or misunderstood or interpreted as something. So I would overcompensate. As I've grown and evolved, my relationship with beauty has just become more and more and more enhanced. I feel like beauty heals. I feel it's the answer. I feel we are in the beauty age right now. This is like what I coin in my book, that we've entered the beauty age. I feel it's a really powerful frequency that we undervalue in the world and that we misunderstand. And it's sometimes easy for women to be like, well, I get it. Like internal beauty, it's so important. I'm like, yeah, so's external beauty. And I'm not just saying like that there's a one expression of that at all. There's millions and millions, but we so often override external beauty as something materialistic or selfish or high maintenance, or that if we were really spiritual, we wouldn't care. And I don't agree with that. Beauty has healed me. The Frenchie experience healed me, literally. So I have a very deep, sacred relationship with it.
It healed you because it was the desire for beauty that led you to the experiences and to want more for yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's insane. I love that so much. That's beautiful. My final question for you. I feel like I could talk to you all day.
We could. We totally could.
And we're just going to have you come back because I just want to, I have like 1,000 questions for every story that you share, but I'm like, reel it in. Let's stay focused.
I love you, Allie, so much.
And we will have you back. But I guess my last question for you, if I were to sum this up, would be what's next and what are you wanting next for yourself? Because I know you have this book, right? And you're going to be retiring from coaching, which I'm sure that I remember when you announced this decision in the mastermind, and that's such a huge decision. But what is the next stage of beauty for you that you're going after?
I love that you even said it that way because that is exactly what it is. It's like the next stage of beauty.
Yeah.
It's the next chapter of beauty. So at the end of this year, I will be retiring from coaching. And it was a huge identity shift because I have found so much value there. And just like what we were saying about my old misunderstanding that beauty wasn't enough, that I needed to show that I was spiritual. I feel like a lot of that identity was also wrapped up in coaching. I'm really good at it. I love it. I'm masterful at it. Masterful. It's really easy for me. And it was also very easy for my ego to be like, you're good. You're doing good in the world. Products like the perfume,
Yeah.
the book, like this really is my full expression. Bringing the femme types to life through products, allowing women to wear the femme types where I don't have to do the bridge of the coaching, that the programs that have been created inside of Elegant Femme do that. So really bringing that entire body of work online in a beautiful way is what's going to be happening. And then Dave and I are getting on a boat and we are sailing around the world, and I will continue to write and experience and share points of beauty from all over the world. And I'm sure some new products will be coming through inside of that. And I want to do less than I ever have in my entire life. I just want to lean back and allow and be in my feminine in brand new ways. When Dave is sailing, it is the biggest turn on because he is the complete master of the boat. He's a skipper. He like takes care of everything. And I literally sit and receive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I desire, like just to be with my kids and write. And yeah.
Okay, I lied. I have one more question. I genuinely have 10 more, but it's like, wait, but this one's really good. And this is because I have a lot of listeners who are young moms.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so curious. Are there any things that if you could go back in time and redo or think about differently, or, like what, if you could go and tell your younger self something, what would that be?
I would not do anything differently. That's for sure.
That's beautiful.
I would, except, maybe whisper in my ear, like how the truth of how quickly it goes. Sending my son to college last year was really hard. It was really, really hard. So I think I would remind myself of that in the moments when I felt like there wasn't time or space for me, that I would remind myself like how quickly it goes. And I would, the practice that I do now is still the practice that I did then with the connection, the quick connection of Indie Frenchie New Yorker every day. And I would remind myself of how powerful that is. Like that simple act. It takes like 3 minutes. That simple act. I would remind myself that it was enough, that it was more than enough, and that I had no idea how much that would compound my life. I feel like as a young mom, like I can remember being afraid of, was I a good mom? I can remember doubting myself. I can remember wanting my kids to know how much I love them, and like, how could I ever, ever, ever express or tell them, like, and so I would just whisper in my ear, like, then I know it now, but then like, you're doing so well. Like, you are such a good mom. Like, they know. And it was something that used to keep me up at night. Like, am I a good mom? Am I a good mom? Am I a good mom? And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a good mom.
I'm the best.
Such a good mom. I'm such a good mom. Like, I know that, but that's what I would like all the things. Like, I used to joke, like, someday Dom and Nico might be on a couch somewhere being like, psychiatrist office, like, oh my God, my mom, my mom was the elegant femme one, like, oh God. And I used to like be afraid of that. And then I would say, like, you know what though? I'm the exact mom they needed. So whatever shit they needed to work out, they came to me. They came through me for that curriculum. So that lightened my load and my guilt and that fear of like, am I a good mom? Like really feeling into the truth. Like they chose me.
Yeah.
They chose me. Like whatever trigger, whatever upset, whatever material I brought forward for them to heal, it's all purposeful, all of it.
That's huge. Yeah. So anything that's going to steal your joy of this moment and take away what you're doing, because what you're doing, I mean, the fact that you even have that question probably says everything that you need to know right there. You care.
So true.
You care.
So true. Like you would never ask yourself that question if you weren't a good mom.
Right.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that guilt, right? Oh, Tara Marino. Oh my gosh. I mean, just like your energy being in this space with you, it's healed me. Just like this conversation has been so healing for me. So I just want to thank you myself for taking the time and being so open and
oh my gosh,
and sharing your heart. And I know the listeners are eating this up too, because we need to hear this. All of us, women, I mean, men and women, but women and moms especially.
Moms especially, we really do. We know, but we need to remind ourselves and we need to remind each other. Like this, this place inside where sometimes moms or women go of like, we can, if we're not intentional, compound each other's guilt instead of lifting each other up. And so I'm so grateful for this conversation. I even saying it out loud for myself, it reminds me. So thank you so much. I am like humbled to be here. I told you, I was like, I'm nervous. I'm going to be all in with Allie Reed. Like I was so touched and humbled, to be able to come on here. So thank you so, so much for having me.
Well, I know the biggest question everybody's going to have is, since you're retiring at the end of the year, do you have space for clients right now? Because you better get in there quick if she does, y'all.
Well, that's so funny. I had a private client complete today and she's like, I'm like, so, completion. And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, wait, no, but really, like, we're done.
She's like, I'm never letting you go.
So, yeah. She's like, no, but wait, what do I do? What do I do? How can we? So there are like a few places to connect with Elegant Femme for sure. This would be so fun. So we have our beautiful Soul Led Life podcast, right? So that's a fun place to go. And we have which is going to be launching so soon, the Femme type quiz. So elegantfemme.com/quiz. It's not up like right now in this second when I'm talking to you. So we would need to make sure it's all good to go. That's where women can connect with their femme types and find out which femme type is actually where they're overcompensating. So they can feel how to put the power of all the femme types back into sync. So that's a fun place. And then of course, elegantfemme.com would be the best place to know like what's up and coming. We have our Sensual Entrepreneur program that's going to be starting in the fall. And that will be the last final time that I run that live, which is like, and then today, my clients are like, so are you going to go to Italy? Are you going to do the Italian experience? And I'm like, what? I don't know yet.
Wait, was that supposed to be in October? Is that September, October?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know if you're going to do it.
I'm praying about it. I'm really praying about it because, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And when I do these types of things, these live experiences, I go all in. I go all in. But if I do it, it will be Portofino and it will be probably end of September. So Dave and I were praying about it today. So those are kind of some big, big, big things. And there may also be one live event to close everything up at the very end of the year.
I mean, so as there should be.
Right? I feel like Let's do a celebration, a completion, and a send off for the next chapter.
Okay.
I think it'll be really, really beautiful. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Well, I'll link all of the things, the podcast, the website. I'll go ahead and link the quiz. And then if it works, great. If it doesn't, just keep checking back. But follow Tara. I'll link your Instagram at Elegant Femme 1, I believe. Thank you so much. You are such a gift. And I'm humbled, and your story is so incredible. And the fact that we get to hear it and be inspired by it. And I'm just so thankful for you leading the way. So thank you for your time, and I love you.
I love you too. I love you so much. Thank you, everyone.